Hey there, mama friend, and welcome to the 5-Minute Mom podcast, where we'll talk about real life, real faith, real fast. For today's show notes or to get free Monday Mom devotionals, visit audrahaney.com. Well, hey friends, I'm so happy to be at this microphone and talking to you again. I planned on taking a little break for July, but we had a huge August and some really beautiful and unexpected things happened, so I was gone a little longer than I had planned. And because of that, today's episode may be a little bit longer than 5 minutes, but I wanted to update you on what was going on in our family. So all summer, I really felt like God was speaking to my heart and telling me that He was going to open up a whole new level of ministry for me this fall. So my oldest started kindergarten, and I enrolled my 2.5-year-old in 4 days of Mother's Day out. So to be honest, I kind of envisioned myself for the first time in 5 years having plenty of time to write and plan and record episodes and dream. And of course, this fantasy included some kind of cool coffee shop, with my hair actually washed and some kind of cute outfit. So I counted down the days. My 2-year-old started school on Monday, and my 5-year-old started kindergarten on Tuesday. And then Tuesday night at 10:30 p.m., we got a call from DCS saying that they had a foster placement, a 1-month-old. And we also found out that this 1-month-old would have to sleep in the DCS office if they didn't find a placement for him that night. So within an hour, we had a beautiful newborn baby boy in our home. And I laughed with my husband that I didn't even get one coffee shop work day. But Jesus is so good, you guys. At our DCS meeting last Tuesday, I was incredibly aware that this was the ministry that Jesus had for me this fall. And to be honest, it is so much more purposeful, eternal, and Christ-like than anything I could have envisioned. But I want to back up a little bit on our foster care journey. My husband and I, even as young children, we both always wanted to adopt. So on our first date, he basically told me I'd have to hit the road if I didn't want to adopt. And I told him, well, the same goes for you, buddy. I want to adopt too. So I remember we'd have these conversations about adoption, and I'd always imagine that we'd adopt internationally or we'd go through an agency. We even looked into adopting from Thailand once, and the door was closed very quickly because of certain requirements. But as we looked into certain options, I would always be sure to tell my husband I could never foster, though. We had so many friends in the process, and I loved their children. I admired their journey and their courage, but I didn't feel strong enough or special enough, or the excuse I said over and over and over again, I could never give the child back. So about 1.5 years ago, we attended an adoption information meeting, and I was certain it was the start of our journey with this agency. However, we left the meeting and nothing felt right. Nothing seemed to fit. And it felt like a really odd door to close, and we were both really confused as we were driving home. And about a week later, I was having a conversation with a friend who fostered, and she casually said, there are so many NAS and drug-exposed babies in our county that they're having to open a second NICU at Children's. And the hospital that she was talking about was less than 10 minutes away from our home. And even though I knew I could never, quote, never foster, I couldn't shake that comment. And the next week at a cookout, another friend casually mentioned that, did you know there's so many babies needing foster homes in Knox County that the kids are actually sleeping in the DCF's office sometimes? And again, I just couldn't shake that was a comment I was meant to hear. And a couple of weeks later, my husband and I spent the weekend at a beautiful retreat for our anniversary weekend. And we went hiking one morning, and I shared with him how I just couldn't shake those comments. How the need seemed so real and so close to us. But as we walked, we also shared how scared we were, how out of control it would make us feel, the potential lifelong complications of NAS and drug use, the possibility of reunification with birth families. And we got to the end of the trail, and we came to a beautiful lake, and we sat on the bench and we prayed, Jesus, if we are supposed to foster, will you just make it really clear to us? That night at the retreat dinner, I sat next to a couple, and when I asked the wife her job, she said, "I'm the head of Tennessee Kids Belong. Did you know there are thousands of kids in foster care in the state of Tennessee?" Well, thank you, Jesus. That was rather clear. From that weekend on, we prayed for the child that God would one day place in our home, that God would protect him, that God would place them in our home in his perfect timing. The next weekend, a friend from church showed up with her new foster daughter, and we had about an hour-long conversation about her journey. It was enough clear confirmations to let us know that we should at least look up where the next foster care certification classes would be held. And the next classes were to be held at our home church, where my husband's on staff. Pretty clear. So fast forward to 1 week ago, and with an hour's notice, we were holding a baby boy on our couch, and we were already completely in love. We later did the math, and his mom would have become pregnant almost exactly to the weekend of our anniversary when we prayed and asked God for direction. And I believe that all along, God saw and knew this precious boy. And while we felt in control of our decisions, God knew this script. And he gently was leading us along and inviting us into his grace and his goodness. So we may only have this little guy for 1 more week or 6 more months, or he may become a permanent placement. But now the possibility of loving and returning our foster love is so real, and he has a real name. He has a real face. And I'll tell you what I'm learning. First, even if this placement was only meant to last a few short weeks, giving this baby love in those days was miraculous and so full of purpose and so worth it. Seeds have been planted for eternity. We are loving deeply, and if DCS decides to move this baby, it will really hurt, and we will really grieve, and the pain will be indescribable. But we will celebrate that God gave us this time and that God is still with the child wherever he may go. We will see the fruit one day, whether here or in heaven, and if we say goodbye, God will still be with us in this calling and with us as we grieve and heal. Our family has been given so many good things in this life. We have been given so much love. And if we have to hurt a little so this life can experience that too, it will have been worth it. There's this saying that says, "Tell God your plans and he'll laugh." Almost as if we refuse something, God has a vindictive way of forcing us to do something we won't like or something that will bring us bitterness, just to prove a point, to prove that he's powerful enough to force our hand. But I see that so differently now. I did say I could never foster, but in God's kindness, he kept inviting me. He kept wooing me and teaching me and showing me the beauty in it, not to force me, but to invite me into something beautiful that I would have missed otherwise. He knew in that statement I was projecting myself into a situation in which I hadn't invited his power, his presence, his love, his miracles. A more correct statement would have been, I could never foster without the grace of God. And thank God he has supplied that grace in abundance. I guess the point of today's monologue is that no matter what hard thing you feel God calling you into, please know that it may still be very hard. It may still be impossible in your own strength. It may leave you wounded and hurting. But if you're going to project yourself into the future, please don't do that with a lens of fear. Please do that remembering how faithful God has been in the past, knowing that he'll never leave you, knowing that he is the healer of every broken thing, and that his presence will be with you in every moment. And that, my friend, is an invitation worth receiving. So that's the end of our 5 minutes. Please tune in again soon. If you want to learn more about me or sign up for the podcast newsletter or get a free devotional, visit audrahaney.com. And if you enjoyed this, would you please leave a quick review? Reviews are so important for podcasters, and it helps more moms find us, and it would be a great blessing.